What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey, and this is eBay Miniature Rescues. This week, we're gonna have some fun with some hobby. I don't really know. Today's the first day, so we'll see how it goes. I suppose could go horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. All right. Now, one of the things that I actually really need to get done on this Deathguard army is to put all the stuff on the base, because at this point I've already primed everything. I've got a layer of stuff done on all of the models, and I haven't done the bases at all. Now, normally I like to put sand all over the base, so when I prime, it's all locked in. In this case, yeah, I didn't do that. So basically, I'm going to lay down a ton of sand on all of these bases, just using PVA, so if we ever do need to remove it, that's not too hard to take off. And then we're gonna get some color on there and kind of start to work on what those bases are gonna look like in the end. Just get to it. Okay, so I kind of wanted to show you what I've done so far and how the basing looks with kind of the current color scheme. I've got all these old Plague Marines that I painted when the 8th edition box came out, and I really like the way that they actually turned out. It's the kind of more traditional green, but I've got the nice plasma blue, and it all just kind of works together. There's a little bit of pink still in there, but it's not quite the fluorescent pink, so I might have to end up coming back to kind of take care of that. They look pretty good together. You get the idea, they're the same basic kind of thing. The biggest thing though is that after the sand goes down, everything is dry, and I throw in a layer of contrast paint, Agoros Dunes, then everything becomes tinted nicely. You can kind of see it on these poxwalkers a little bit better, where each of those rocks is a kind of slightly different color, and I really didn't have to do too much. The natural variation in rocks and the translucency with the contrast paint really made it kind of a nice looking base right off the bat, which I really like contrast for. On the other hand, the other unifying factor is this gamer's grass. Really, it's the gamer grass that kind of pulls everything together. It unifies all the pink in the models. It brings attention all across the entire thing. It makes the ground look obviously more alien. It's got its own kind of look to it. I just really like the way that pink plays with all of these bases. It kind of brings in the pink from the model to the base and just kind of unifies everything, including on some of the older bases. The other thing I've been working on, besides getting all the bases done, is to test out this new metal color from MIG. That's this really dark aged bronze, and it looks pretty great on this white, and I'm liking that a lot. It's burnt iron, in fact jet exhaust burnt iron, and it's got this nice metallic look to it, but it's kind of a really rusty looking brown, and I think that's going to be perfect for contrast to really set these models apart instead of having to kind of force that later on with rust and different kinds of things like that. All right, before we talk about this piece of the tank, I wanted to share a little bit of mail time. Now, I was perusing eBay as I generally do, and I found this sweet defiler for 50 bucks. Now, it's not a huge, massive savings, but this kit is already put together. It was assembled properly where everything actually moves. So I know that it was done halfway decently. And it also was earmarked for Nurgle. This is some green stuff, little pustules, which kind of makes me want to pop off all these panels, make them the same as the Deathguard army, and I don't know, kind of go to town on this guy and make something really fun. This particular model has always interested me. Let's take a quick little trip. Pull the camera off. Okay, I think you probably see that. There is an old school Defiler box up here, and I've used it on the channel before in these couple of different ways. So this was my buddy's back in the day when this was a new kit. Yeah. So my buddy bought this for his Chaos Space Marine army, and he put together a defiler, and all the rest of the bits are still in the box. You can see that some of these parts are basically half painted. I don't know what kind of paint this is. I don't know if it's some kind of an army painter primer or something else. Maybe even, a Citadel, some kind of Dark Angels primer. But something is going to have to be done. Now, the good news is that the glue on this model is not excessive, and the paint is not overly excessive. It's not clogging any of the details up, and this is a huge monster. So I think we'll be probably okay to just kind of reprime some of these problem areas and do some fun stuff. Now, the cool thing is, this model is mostly made of metal. It's a giant metallic spider, which means that for the most part, we're just going to be working on metal, and I have a really fun way to do that I've done before in the past. So we're going to take care of that, pop off all of the little plates to do all of our fancy chipping with and get our Deathguard look, and I think we're going to have a cool, viable option if we want to play a Defiler in this Deathguard list. I don't know if that's any good, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I remember this model pretty fondly from back in the day, and I would be pretty happy to have one of these on the table. So those are kind of the plans for this week. You know, we got some stuff done today. I did some of the basing. I finished out some more of those models, and I think we've got a nice, almost, it's a little bit above 1,000 points right now of basically tabletop ready playable Deathguard, which I'm super excited about. So we're more than halfway there to a completed army. That being said, too, some of this process is going to have to be expedited a little bit. I painted X amount for a video. I didn't finish the rest of them, so I need to do that. The Defiler, I think, is going to be a really cool project that we can probably work on. That Rhino that we're going to 3D print is also a really cool project. So these are the things that we're going to be slowly working up to while filling some of the other time with, some of the smaller units, just to try and get the most out of each day as possible. So this is the end of day one. I'll see you tomorrow. Alright, so this is the really fun part of larger models like these tanks. A lot of people choose to do freehand work on large open areas, either literal or cheating freehand. Check out my Sisters of Battle Night I did a while back to see what I mean. Or we get to go a more geometric route and do fun things like caution lines or chevrons. I find that this is the part that stands out the most, and we can push colors and ideas on the front because we're mixing the new color with the rest of the tank underneath. And having chipping medium beneath all of that gives us even more opportunities to blend the new paint with the tank. This process isn't that hard. You just have to be a little bit patient and get in there with the tape. I'm using Tamiya masking tape because it's pretty thin, it's 6mm wide, and it's got the right amount of adhesive for model work. Of course, I still managed to mess it up a little because I was being impatient, but it still works out pretty great in the end. The idea though is to put the tape on the blade at around a 45-degree angle, meeting in the middle like a downward arrow. We spray the blade with yellow, being very careful to build that color up slowly and not flood the model with moisture. You really don't want paint to go underneath your tape, so try and shoot sparingly and straight onto the model. And of course, before you spray paint, make sure that that tape is stuck down nicely. I'll add some scrag brown to the bottom for a nice gradient and finish that off with some burnt umber at the very bottom to make it really dark. After the paint is dried, and it's very important to be even more patient here, then you can pull that tape off. Not before it's dried, not dry to the touch, but you waited and you know it's dry. But seriously, wait till it's dry. Once I pulled up the tape, I was getting really excited. It looks rad, but there's still more work to be done. Using a pretty dark metallic, I went over all of the trim. This really brings out the look, and you can really see how that pattern looks all together. I cannot wait to put this on the tank. From there, I used a combination of verdigris and rust to weather the metallics and the chipping on the blade itself. Now, I know that rust and verdigris don't exactly go together. We've had many conversations about this, but it looks really cool and very fantastical to mix them up. After all, it's just as easy to say that this metal is magic and it bleeds blue when you cut it. So stick with the rule of cool. Don't worry about what's real and what's not. If it looks cool, thumbs up all day long. So this is pretty much what we ended up with doing our chevrons. Basically, what actually ended up happening is that the tape that I laid down ended up pulling up this paint. I think a combination of using the blow dryer to actually expedite the drying process probably made the hairspray bubble up just enough that it reacted with the tape and just pulled right off. We've already got chipping across this part of the dozer blade. Now, we could do a lot more. All of this stuff is still active. I haven't matte varnished it, I haven't done anything to it, so if we loaded up our brush with some water, we could chip away more. Right now, I'm liking the way it looks. I'm just going to give it a couple of days, maybe till next week, just to kind of let it linger, see if it feels good to me or if I want to do more work. The rest of the weathering was done with verdigris and basically an orange rusty paint. Overall, I think that it actually turned out really nice, and I'm pretty excited to put that on the front of my tank. So I thought I'd just interrupt this section because yeah, I'm editing right now and I'm trying to do voiceover, and there's a baby. Well, and she pretty much just fell asleep here, so now I gotta deal with that. And I think there might be some background noise during this, so I apologize if there's some weird noises in the background of some of these vocal recordings. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. So, you know, I appreciate you sticking around and supporting. Yeah, thank you. All right, back to it. Now for the rest of the actual tank. The good news is that we did a majority of the work in the previous videos documenting this army, so the tank is chipped and ready to go for weathering. All of the metallics on the tank are the same as the blade, and the chipping was done with chipping medium. The next step is to liberally coat the tank in brown enamel wash. This will darken the ivory white of the tank and let us really make it look dirty while maintaining control over how much and where we want it. I brush on a lot of this enamel and begin to take it off with mineral spirits. Before the paint dries, which does take forever, forever, you can add some nice effects by laying acrylic paint over the top of the oils. The oil and acrylic paint repel each other like oil and water, and the acrylic paint can spread in some fun and unique patterns on the model. I mostly prefer this method for doing blood, but verdigris and rust on a machine work just as well. For all of the finer details, I'll wait for the tank to dry. To clean up the metallics a little bit, I just lightly dry brush the edges with a bright aluminum color. This edge highlights all of it and gives it a nice old metal look where the edges are kind of sharp and shiny, but the rest of the metal is weathered and rusted away. Especially on the sides of the tank, you can see how much this brings out the details. Onto weathering. This is the part where you can pretty much have a lot of fun and just play around. Just pick out little parts of the model that stick out to you and get in there with tiny little streaks or rusts of verdigris or whatever it is. The tank is already at a good level, so the rest is pretty optional. If you are having fun doing it, keep going. If not, move on to the next model. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I had this little secret the whole time. I was also working on the other tank, but I wanted it to be a little different, so I went with green instead of yellow. I am so happy with the way these turned out. I feel like they fit in the army, and they're definitely models that stand out in the lineup of other Plagueburst Crawlers. This was a good amount of work this week, but totally worth it. 25% of the army point cost has been taken care of this week, which is more than I think all of the other weeks so far. I'm calling that a huge win. I was even able to bring in that pink accent color and make these blades pop even more. Here are more pictures of the finished product, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. So that pretty much wraps it up for day 2. I think we got a lot of work done this week. I actually finished both tanks, and I'm super happy with that. For next week, I want to prioritize some of the larger units, probably Morty. I really want to get those wings done at least, and kind of see where that takes us. You know, we're getting some of the larger things knocked out. The tanks were a big part of that. Those are big models in this army. So we're going to keep chipping away at this stuff and hopefully be done really soon. Thank you again for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you liked something about this video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.